like to thank everyone for coming out today. And I would like to thank all of our community members for attending the lecture and the majlis and gathering of Ibrahim Abdul-Jabbar. I would also like to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost to bring us all in this majalis close to Him through the names of our beloved Prophet and Holy Prophet. ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين البشير النذير والسراج المنير المنصور المؤيد ومحمود الأحمد أبي القاسم مصطفى محمد صلوات الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل أهل البيت الطيبين الطاهرين والمعصومين والحاديين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال الله العلي العظيم في كتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والله أنبتكم من الأرض نباتا صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات الله. I would also like to, before I start, thank my beloved brother for giving us that heartfelt presentation. And every time I see him talk, every time I'm with him over on 37th Street Southeast at the Halakha, which I attend from time to time when I can, I always hear his voice. I see him and I'm thinking about conversations we've had, and we've had many conversations. And we've both agreed that the road forward is the road of unity, the road of brotherhood, and the road of education. So inshallah, we will develop that road all together, as the Quran says again, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wa'tasimu bihablillahi jami'a. Hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all together. Tonight, before we get into tonight, yesterday, just to do a really short recap, because I don't have it all in my head because I had to do another one today. But yesterday, really shortly, we went over the seed. We went over the seed and how the seed grows. The ayat that I just recited was the same ayat from yesterday. The theme of this weekend is titled, They thought they could bury the truth, but they didn't know it was a seed. This title was broken down into 3 subtitles. First night, the seed, planting the seed. Second night, the roots and the trees. Third night, the branches and the fruits. We talked about the seed and how the seed grows in the ground and what we have to do to cultivate that seed and take care of that seed so it can grow into something that can benefit society. We talked about plants. The ayah that I read tonight, which I read yesterday as well, in the Holy Quran, says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Wallahu anbatakum min al-ardi nabata. Allah alone is the one that made you grow in the earth like a plant. I connected that ayah to the seed. We went over many concepts of how the seed of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was connected to Rasulullah and the fitrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And we talked about going forward really quickly because tonight is not a long one. Because yesterday, please forgive me, I went a little long. And one of my elders reminded me of that. And tonight I will try my best to pay attention to the time. But if anyone sees me going over 40 minutes, just give me the signal and we'll go into the Musa'id. But yesterday we also talked about something that was very important that I want to remind everyone. And that is our parents and those who came before us. Because in the process of being a seed, sometimes we get off our path, some of us in the community, but we come back because we remember. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, and remind, because the reminder benefits the believer. And sometimes we're in bad situations and we're reminded and we come back to the path. That's the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the power of the Quran. That it reminds you. And the situation when you say, well, I don't have anything to say any more further because I don't want to get into it with the brother or sister or whoever. And the next thing you know, you see the brother at the majalis. Or the next thing you know, you see the brother at the halakha. Or the next thing you know, you see the brother in the Jamaat praying right beside you. And you're like, La ilaha illallah, what happened? He said, I read something. Allahu Akbar. This is what a seed can do. So we have to thank our elders in the community, those brothers who paved the way. And tonight I would like to also thank the seeds of our community, the youth, for showing up and being here. So I would like to first and foremost say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight, we're going to go into a different aspect. Tonight is the day of the trees. In the Quran and in Arabic it is al-ashjar. I chose this topic because I thought about a tree. And I thought about how a tree goes through life, a fruit tree, to be specific. But before we get into trees in the main subject, I'd like to tell a story. My beloved, my son's grandfather and my ziyar partner, he knows this story very well already because we talked about it. There's a community in Florida where they were trying to pay for their masjid. And they were going around, bouncing around different places, renting churches out. We talk about brotherhood, right? The churches were renting them a space so they could gather, so they can do Juma, they could do like majalis, they can do dua. And this is my wife's community back home. It's the IEC, by the way. So that was something that really I thought it was a sign because I went to the IEC when I was a kid. So the thing was, I met an individual in their community named Haji Mahmoud. And I asked him for permission tonight to tell this story because it went with the trees. While they were there, they were running around from different places, and they had a Quran school that they started on the weekend. Before you knew it, as we know, just like this majalis, it grew and grew. With brotherhood, they started to call around, and everyone started to come on the weekend. Before you knew it, it was 70 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. They had to get another place. So I'm just fast forwarding to the story so we can get to the trees. So fast forward all the way up to they got a property that they saw some land, and there was a lot of trees on that property. Everyone there was like, wow, it would be nice, and it looks like it'll be a nice place, but it has so many trees. So they did dua. They called down to the main place that takes the trees out for the community, and they said, how much we need to know how much it costs for us to get the trees out, or can you come and get the trees out because we're trying to do our construction. The people told them and said, well, for this type of job, they came and did the appraisal, and they said $50,000. It's like $50,000. Where we gonna get that kind of money? The land is a whole nother story. We'll do it with another time. So they already had spent money on the land, and they were like, another $50,000 for the trees. So what ended up happening was, he said that they were just like, we don't know what to do. They started to make the dua. They were calling around. How much can we get? How much can we borrow from this donor, that donor? Can we get anyone to donate for the land, for the trees? So when Allah wants something to happen, Allah does miracles. So one day, just recently, I don't really want to give away the story, something happened. He said that all of a sudden, a hurricane came through. And when this hurricane came through, he said that he went to the property, and surprisingly, all of the trees on the property were in sajda. All of them were laying down on the ground, knocked down. He said, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Now we have to get the trees up, and they're broken, right? So he called down to the commission's office or wherever, and he asked them, he said, we have these trees and they're knocked down. What do we do? How much is this going to cost us? He said, what kind of people are you? Maybe he thought it was magic, who knows? He said, this is your lucky day. Now that the trees are knocked down, it is upon the state. They have to get them out there for free. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد صلى الله عليه wasallam. So that brings me to something that I wanted to say about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah doesn't wish, Allah wills. Nuridullah. When Allah wills something to happen, it happens. No matter who wants it. It's up to Allah. Nobody can stop it. In yansurukum Allahu fala ghalib lakum. And Allah, if Allah says you, there is no one that could come against you. And that's Quran. So that's one thing about the trees. Secondly, he said that him and his colleagues and the brothers from his community, they walked on those same trees that they told him 50,000. And he said they thanked Allah. Nashkurullah. Shukranillah. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, and if you are grateful, I'll increase you. I'll give you more. And from there, there's a whole nother different story, and we have to exhaust 7, 8 nights to tell the story about the masjid, how they paid for it, and everything. But I just wanted to say, I thank Allah for that particular center, because I go to that center and I didn't know the background of it, and he told me this story, and I wanted to share with you all that once the trees were removed, he thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything that we have in our community, and inshallah we'll have a beautiful big masjid one day that we can all recite salawat in. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Going forward, I would like to send my condolences to first Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, the entire Ahlul Bayt, the Ma'asumeen, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Khadijatul Kubra, Tahira. And I would also like to send my special condolences to the Imam of the time, Imam Sahib al-Zaman, Imam Mahdi Ajalallahu Ta'ala Farajuhu Sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Tonight the topic is about trees, and I want you to focus on trees and what does a tree go through. Just like us, trees have tests. When you look at a tree, you see a tree, if anyone in here is familiar with time-lapse videos, where they go and they take this picture of a tree and they go through the life cycle of a plant, and it's really fast. So think about that same life cycle. When a tree goes up, it comes from out of the ground from the seed, and it grows really small, and it goes really fast. The video goes really fast. And let's think about that in the framework of life, and how this tree blooms in the different season of this tree. This tree blooms and it has green leaves on it, and it produces pears, let's just say, or figs, let's just say. And the next thing you know, the tree is outside of the season, it drops all of its fruits, and it keeps going, it keeps going. It drops its leaves, the leaves become brown. It drops its leaves, and the leaves are on the ground. The leaves are swept away with the wind, or they're buried in the ground, and this tree has no more leaves on it. And it goes through this cycle where the tree is now being preserved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the weather. This is the seasons of blessings, when you put forth a seed and it grows, and there's a season of testing in our life. When you look at this tree, look at your own life and you say to yourself, what is that one thing that Allah talks about in the Holy Quran that links us to the tree and links the tree to us? Our bodies are made of what? So many percentage of what? Water. The water from the sky is what Allah sends to that tree in order for that tree to grow. What if, and this is in the Quran, Allah says in Surah Mulk, the last ayah in Surah Mulk, what if I do not send you any more water? How can that tree grow? How can you, if no water is here, let's look at the damage that would be done. We wouldn't have water. The trees would not have water. We would not have vegetation. We would not have fruits. The animals would not have any grass to eat or anything. So let's look at that for a second and just think about the role that water plays in our growth, and the role that water plays in the life of a tree. Now let's take it to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Before we take it to him, let's go to Nabi Ayub. Nabi Ayub alayhi salam was one of the prophets that I thought about and said, this was appropriate for this night. Because Nabi Ayub alayhi salam was one of the prophets that they called him Nabi al-Sabr. Nabi al-Sabrin, the prophet of patience. Let's look at his life for 1 second. Before Nabi Ayub went through his test, he was wealthy, well off. Nabi Ayub had many followers. People came around him, made salat with him, Jamaat. He was like, in this terms of this day, he was like a millionaire. He had crop, and he was a giver. All of his animals, anybody on his land, he said, anyone can eat off my land, anyone can eat the crops. And me and you had this conversation about him before. And when you go further with Nabi Ayub, you start to think about what he lost. Not only did he lose his finances, and many of us in our community, we was at one time, we was at our glory, you know, the money was coming, everything was good, life was comfortable. And then the test come, imtihan. Allah says testing. But Nabi Ayub was special. Nabi Ayub alayhi salam, when he was getting all of his blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he would go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he would make dua, make dua, make dua, stay in prayer. He was abideen. He was a worshiper. So Shaitan asked the question to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a request. He said, this one is doing it because he's showing off. Allow me to take his wealth, and I guarantee you, he will turn on you. Allah said, you're wrong about my servant. You don't know. But you have the dominion over his wealth. He asked his jinns and everything, and when came back to earth, asked his jinns to go and do certain things to his wealth, burn his crop, kill his animals, shop them like a jinn. And all this is in our riwayah and Bihar Anwar. And it's a book I'm reading, very good book that I suggest to all of you. It's called God's Emissaries from Sheikh Aristu. Please pick it up. Inshallah, we'll have some free copies upstairs for everyone to take and check out the library, inshallah. Aflah man salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So Nabi Ayub alayhi salam, this shaitan came and said, and came in man form, is what they say in the riwayah, and as one of his workers. And when he came to him, he said, oh my God, your crops are on fire. Look what Allah's done to you. This is a shaitan. Blame Allah, right? Nabi Ayub alayhi salam looked at him and said, excuse me? Do you know me? He said, I'm one of your workers. He said, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took my finances and took my crop from me, it belonged to him anyway. Because in the Quran, what does Allah say? Allah owns everything from as-samawati wal-ard. I looked it up one time. I found over 55 verses that talks about that. Everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are renting a rental car. Your wealth, everything is a rental car. And that is the type of mentality that we have to have with this world. Nabi Ayub alayhi salam, not only did he lose his finances, next, Shaitan went back to Allah. Oh, I lost. Of course, Shaitan will lose. La'natullah. And he went back to Allah and he said, well, that didn't work. You were right about that. But if you give me dominion over his children, not saying what he will do, then I will be successful over your servant. And I will get him to turn on you. Allah said, you're wrong about my servant. We don't know. But go, you have dominion. He came back to earth again. And what did he do? Some riwayah says he took 12. Some riwayah said 14 of his children. Killed them. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. All of them gone. What was his answer? Nabi Ayub said to the people when his children died, he said, they weren't mine. They were an amana, a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I did my part. They belong to Allah. What does the ayah say? From Allah we come, and to Allah we return. Your body, your pre-existence, it's a rental car. You have to return it, but not your hurts, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of it. Anything that you own, it is Allah's. Now, how does this link up with Imam Hussein alayhi salam? The strong tree that Imam Hussein was, when he was on the battlefield, and I'm going to try my best to not cry, but when he was on the battlefield and the baby Ali Asghar was shot with an arrow in his neck, an infant, by the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what was his response? Ya Allah, take until you're satisfied. Because Imam Hussein alayhi salam understood in the Quran when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, radiyallahu ankum wa radu'a.
Okay, so what?
They are pleased with Allah, Allah is pleased with them. It is really hard to meet that level and come to a level of maqam al-ridha. Now we're going to go to Nabi Ismail alayhi salam and his blessed mother Hajar. Now with Hajar, she was out in the desert, and we all know the story very well because we get many of our rituals of Hajj, which is something that we hold on to, and that is a bridge. No matter which madhab you are in, we all perform Hajj together, right? On that day, we all pray together, where you pray with your hands up, hands down, you pray beside your brother, right? And one of the rituals is what? Hajar went from Safar and Marwa looking for what? Water. Water again. The baby was crying. The mother was barren. You know, she didn't have any water. She couldn't breastfeed the child. So the baby was crying. Back and forth. And may Allah, before I go on, may Allah bless my mother, Ummi, Sister Shakur, because she taught me this. She is the one who taught me this story. And before we go on, I would like to say, Aflahaman salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Rahmatullah alayhi. She went back and forth in this place in Mecca, looking for water. Back and forth, looking for this water. She could not find any water. The baby started to cry. The baby started to kick the ground. We know, many of us in the community, we know the story. And the water gushed forth. The rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happened. To the point that they say, some of the grammarians say that the word Zamzam is not an Arabic word. It comes from another language, from the ancient language. And it means stop, stop. Because the water was gushing forward so much. Allah blessed them abundantly with the water. Now let's take it to the plains of Karbala. As we said last night, this beautiful strong tree of Imam Hussein, who had the seed of compassion in his heart, he was captured in the middle of the desert before Karbala. And he gave what? Water to all of the animals. And he gave water to all of the people who were about to capture him. Hur was in that category, in that company of those people who captured him. And Imam Hussein knew what they were going to do to him. And he still, out of compassion, gave each one of them water. The same water that he needed on the battle of Karbala and in the tragedy of Karbala and on the day of Ashura, when the children, the women, and his companions and the soldiers that were with him needed that water. But Allah did something different with Imam Hussein. When he lifted Ali Asghar to the sky and said, who will help us and give us water? The enemy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed these people to shoot an arrow in the neck of an infant. Instead of water, they gave him blood. They soaked the ground with the blood of an infant. And this is why we have to stay and understand what was the purpose and what did Imam Hussein alayhi salam was martyred for. And I had to be very careful, as I said last night. We can't say died for or killed, because what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Holy Quran? He says about the martyrs, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, La tahsabanna alladhina qutilu fi sabilillahi amwat bal haya'un inda rabbihim yurzaqun. Do not even think that those who died or killed in the way of Allah, fi sabilillah, that they are dead. They are alive, receiving sustenance with their Lord. So this was a baby, but Allah chose to test Imam Hussein differently than Nabi Ishmael. Because everything is in a time frame. Instead of the baby getting the water from Zamzam, or the water that gushes forth, or even someone being compassionate enough to give a child water, the child was martyred. And he is amongst his grandfather, and he is amongst his father, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So when we think about a person and what they go through in life, we think about these tests. Each one of us are going to go through test after test. But then we have to think about it to ourselves and say, okay, and this, I'm trying my best not to, because I'm talking about myself here. I check myself first. Something goes wrong, I used to be a person to be like, oh my God, nothing is going my way, right? Every time I try to do something right, it just doesn't go my way. But we have to remember that we have a perspective in life that may not fit the perspective in the basira of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has given us Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam Muhammad Baqir has a riwayah that says that, one of the famous riwayah is this one. He says that there was a man who was famously known in heavens for his worship, abidin. So the angels were coming back and forth. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The angels were coming back and forth on a mission. Thank you, Sheikh. The angels were coming back and forth on a mission. And they were sent out by Allah. And they met while one was descending and one was ascending. And I love that because I think about Superman, because I was a Superman type of, my brother has a Superman shirt on, right? And I think about Superman when I was like, you know, he could fly and the angels could fly, right? So they were ascending and they met in the middle. And this is a riwayah. I can provide you the riwayah. I had it here with me. And one was ascending and the other was descending. He said, what's your mission? They met in the middle. He said, I have a really strange mission. He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent me to a man who's famously known in the heavens for his ibadah, his worship. He said, he's been fasting today. Allah sent me to knock over his plate of iftar. The whole tray, knock it over. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to understand that if you are truly on ibadah and you are truly on worship, you are also as-sabirin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that he loves those who are what? This is another seed. Patient. Wallahu yuhibbu as-sabirin. Allah loves the patient. Now let's take it to us. And this is self-evaluation, as you said. And I want to go into something different, you know, because this is going off the path of my lecture, and please let me know the timing. Some of us, including myself, you know, we have few people living in us. We have the person we present at the musalla, the masjid, the community. We have the one that is at work, right? Very sharp, very thorough, very strict. So, how you doing, sir? Yes. Then we have the one that is at home. One of our beloved scholars, Ali, may Allah bless him and prolong his life, said this same point. He said, some of us are Nabi Musa when we come to the community. But then we are Fir'aun when we go home. He said, you know, even our children, they're watching us, the seeds. They see it. You at the masjid, somebody pull a little kid running, pour a whole bunch of Kool-Aid on your white stove on the day of what? Juma. You look at them, you have a whole language at the masjid. Wallahu, you have what's already? Alhamdulillah. I said, don't worry about it, it's okay. Knowing in your mind, this is my last right thought. Right? You get home, the wife, the children, accidentally spills the grape Kool-Aid on the same throat. Didn't I tell you? The voice raised. Where's the sabirin? So he also went forward and he said that we have to make sure that we don't teach that to the seeds in the community, because they're going to grow the trees. And they start to do what? They go to school, totally different person. They come home, Allahu Akbar. Yes, I understand. Because they're good kids. You see them at the masjid, a little bit of Kool-Aid get poured on them, they say the same thing. Wallahu yuhibbus sabirin. Taqaleyn. They just follow the parents. But then the Maulana comes with the Abba, and he comes to the school one day to give a presentation. And they don't expect to see Maulana there, and they run around the corner because they have another identity at school. So we have to make sure that the children understand who you are. And one of the things that I want to share, that I love this sheikh that I've listened to, his name is Sheikh Muhammad Mendez. He said in one of his lectures, and I'm going to talk in our cultural tones tonight, because I don't seek to be anyone else but myself, and I have my background. He said, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he started with the Arabic, he said, he kept it 100 all the time. He was one person. So as me, starting with me, I have to be that one person. When I am tested by Allah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said, when he would be tested, he would say, Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. All praises belong to Allah in all circumstances. And when he was blessed, he would say, Alhamdulillah. All praises belong to Allah. So that teaches me that any situation that you're in, you say Alhamdulillah. When I first learned that, that was very trivial. People was getting, bad things were happening to them. They would say, Alhamdulillah. I'm like, why are you saying Alhamdulillah? Right? And then I started to understand that when you say Alhamdulillah, everything, even the trees, everything in this whole universe praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything. So you have to continue to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever situation that you are in. And Imam Hussein understood that. His companions understood that. The women in his camp, they understood that. They understood that whatever happens, it is always Alhamdulillah. No matter what, that tree that goes up, goes down, it's other trees. The environment is not good for them. What happens? They die. So on that note, I won't be long tonight. I want to do something different. Yesterday we did something with the community that tonight we're going to do it again. So the people that was here yesterday, they know how it goes. We're going to go into Musab. Hit the lights for me, Chef. We have a community type of Musab that we're going to do tonight, and we're going to try. It's like a nursery. It's something that we're going to say. I'm going to say it, then you say it. Whatever I say, don't worry what I say. Just continue to say it. So we're going to say it about 10 times together, and then I'm going to start saying a few things. Inshallah, next year in rebuilding and reconstruction, we should reconstructing the martyrdom of Imam Hussein in our community in commemoration. We'll have some of the youth come and do some poetry. And tonight you're also welcome to come up and do poetry if you have anything that's on your heart that you would like to share with us. But tonight we have a poem type of melody that we're going to do. And it's called Wa Wayla. When I say Wa Wayla, you say Wa Wayla, Wa Wayla, Wa Wayla. Before we go on, because you sound good. Before you go on. Wa Wayla means, oh my goodness, Imam. Look what is happening to us. Oh my God. Tonight this Wa Wayla is dedicated to Umm al-Baneen sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. who gave Abu Fadl Abbas to Imam Hussein as a weapon to watch his brother. And tonight this Wawayla belongs to Ali Asghar alayhi salam. So let us make sure we try to perfect it, and we're going to build this in our community for years to come. Wawayla, 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 no matter what I say it. Wawayla, 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 little louder. Wawayla, 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 Wawayla. Just continue. Wawayla, Zainabu, Wawayla, 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 Hussein, Wawayla, 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 Ali Asghar, Wawayla, 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 Al-Mani, Wawayla, 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 Rasulullah, Wawayla, 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 Wawayla. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.